Okay. Okay, everyone. Uh, Thank you again for joining us on the Love Fruit podcast, a podcast for raw vegans, fruitarians all around the world. And today we have another fantastic guest, and that is Dr. David Klein. And Dave is a nature orthopathic doctor, 36 years on a raw vegan diet, and he currently resides in Maui, Hawaii. And Dave is the publisher of some of the world's biggest, or the world's biggest, raw food magazines over a 20-year period, where he published previously the Vibrance magazine and the Living Nutrition magazine. He's also the author of the very well-known book Self-Healing Colitis and Crohn's, and he still helps people with those conditions and helps coach people. He was the founder of and the director of 5 festivals held in the US, including the Rostock Festival, and was also the um, the main coordinator of 15 or 16 Raw Passion seminars held around the US as well, and also holds the website fruitarian.info. So we're going to be talking today, and Dave's going to be sharing us information about the history of the Fruitarian movement. So, Dave, is there anything else you would like to let us know in introduction to yourself?
No, thank you very much, Ronnie. That covered the highlights, and I'm going to try to do a very unusual interview, as you know, covering all the historical high points of the Fruitarian movement as I know them, and see if we can get it done in a reasonable time.
Yeah, sure.
So I want to salute you first for doing the UK Fruit Festival. How many years have you done it?
We've done it for 6 years, and we're going to do it for a 7th time this year.
Fantastic. It's in July every year?
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. It's the end of July, so July the 26th to the 2nd of August. It runs over 8 days now. So we used to be 5 days, but we went up to 8 days.
Fantastic. Great job.
Thank you very much, Dave.
I thought it'd be good if we both just very briefly started out saying how we got into the fruit diet.
Sure.
You want to go first?
Yeah, sure, Dave. I mean, throughout my life, basically, I've always been moving towards a healthier and healthier path. From a young age, I didn't, I was aware of the ideas of like smoking was bad for you, drugs are bad for you, drinking's bad for you, and I just took that and followed it. Unlike other people who can rebel against that, I just decided that sounds. I'll just listen to people when they tell me these things. So I was always kind of a little bit healthier, maybe than the average person, and eventually went gradually towards cutting out processed foods, cutting out meat. Eventually going vegan, more for ethical reasons, and then kind of came across raw as a result, really, of researching veganism and trying to work out how to do the vegan diet in a healthy way, and came across information from raw vegans, and it just clicked for me. And I started experimenting with it, got more and more and more fascinated by it, and continued going down that path, and eventually went to an event and just fell in love with the whole community. And yeah, I've stuck to the diet now for about the last 7-8 years. So that's been my kind of journey. Briefly, what about yourself?
I'll try to make it brief. I was sick, very sick. My life was ruined with ulcerative colitis for 8 years, from age 18 to 26. In the last year, I started looking for a dietary solution, even though the doctors, 7 of them, said that diet had nothing to do with my bloody ulcerated colon and going to the toilet 10 times a day. Pretty amazing, huh?
Yeah.
So I found a nutrition doctor, Dr. Natural Hygiene, named Dr. Lawrence Gallant in New Jersey, where I'm from. And he gave me a diet plan of rabbit and monkey food, and I thought he was full of you know what. And but a year later, the doctor said it's time to cut out my colon because I'm probably going to get cancer, and had to do something because my life was in ruins. And that's when I started to put it all together. Make a long story short, I saw the light. I started the fruit diet, fruits and veggies, sweet potatoes and squashes, steamed, and a little bit of avocado. And I healed up in 4 weeks after being sick for 8 years.
Mm.
And it lit a fire under my butt, which is still burning brightly. And that was, 36 years ago, and I'm still shouting out the merits of the fruitarian diet. And yeah, I healed up, rejuvenated, got on with my life, ended up changing my career from environmental engineering to health coaching. Then I got my PhDs in natural health and healing from the University of Natural Health. And here we are, boy, 36 years later, doing this diet. I've been 100% raw the last 27 years, and it's been an amazing journey. Met all the most amazing fruitarian leaders and educators, and I'm going to try to go over all the key players in the fruitarian movement. And I thought I'd start off with the most famous, the originals, Adam and Eve.
Excellent. Yeah.
Go way back. I don't want to get into speculating about what the meaning of the forbidden fruit is, but I think this history of the fruitarian movement would have to start with Adam and Eve. I don't know if you want to add anything with regard to the story of the forbidden fruit. You have any insights into that?
Well, I guess traditionally people think it's an apple, but in fact in the Bible it doesn't actually mention any particular fruit. But it is an interesting story that apparently is in a lot of different ancient texts. The idea that people lived in a paradise and lived on fruit and naked, and then we kind of ended up falling from nature into the modern world. So where we work in fields to grow our food and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting thing that seems to be crop up. And
yes,
yeah.
It's a big topic, and I'm going to move on here. I've got about 60 or 70 points to cover, hopefully briefly, and we'll get through this thing without losing the audience. Okay, so the next famous person in the history of fruitarianism is Leonardo da Vinci.
Mm-hmm.
Who I think most would agree is the most brilliant, innovative thinker in history. And there's not much information about his personal life, but there's some brief information about how he preferred the fruitarian diet.
Right.
Moving along to the 1800s, my favorite author preferred to do the fruitarian diet. He wrote a book called Wild Fruits. His name is Henry David Thoreau.
Oh, wow.
Famous, fantastic nature writer, lecturer at Harvard University. Beautiful passages he wrote in Walden and other books on the intricacies, the wonders of nature. And some will point the finger saying he included meat in his diet. Well, it wasn't easy to eat a fruitarian diet in the 1800s. There weren't refrigerators. He's lived in a cold climate in the winter, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
But the clarity, the insights of this amazing man, to me, when I learned how to heal my body, and I learned that Thoreau was also a fruitarian, at least a fruitarian at heart, it just really lit me up and just really helped me put together how the fruit-based diet is the best for our intellect, for getting in touch with nature and optimizing our brain power, our potential.
Sure. And I wanted to add one in that you maybe you've skipped over, but I've heard as well some people suggested that St. Francis of Assisi talked about, or some people have said that he preferred a raw type of a diet. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
That's fascinating. I never heard that. I have read his famous poem.
That's right.
But
yeah.
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Well, what someone said to me was that some people suggested that he preferred raw foods, and when he ate cooked food, he would add ashes to it so that he didn't eat too much of it, apparently. I'm not sure how true that is, but that's what I was told as a story.
That's great information. Okay, so now let's move to later on in the 1800s, the nature mensch of Germany. The Nature Children of Germany. My friend Gordon Kennedy, about, I don't know, let's see, 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, wrote a great book called Children of the Sun. And he researched the history of the raw food movement, the roots of it. And it traces back to Germany. The nature-loving, wanderlust Germans who lived very naturally, barefooted. And he documented an amazing pictorial history in the book Children of the Sun.
Yeah, great book.
Goes back to the great German naturopathic doctors, the original hippies, and the movement moved, believe it or not, to Southern California. There was a band of brothers who lived very naturally. They foraged for fruit. They would drive 400 miles just to go to a ripe fig tree. And the photos of these amazingly healthy-looking people, even when they were in their 70s, is just astounding. If you can find that book on Amazon, go for it.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment on that. That's a fantastic book that I came across myself a while back. And what is amazing about it, Dave, is if you look at those men in that book, and there's women as well, but it's very much like some of the scenes that I've seen at some of the fruit festivals that I've been to in the last 10 years, where you've got guys with long hair, beards, all eating fruit together, shirts off, that back to nature thing. And as you're saying, what a lot of people don't realize is the connection they had to the hippie movement, being in California. Some of them tried to live in a more natural environment, as you're saying, and that's a fascinating story that a lot of people would be interested in.
Absolutely, it's a huge story. If you could ever track down Gordon Kennedy and interview him about that, it would be amazing.
Excellent.
The book is a fantastic read, and one of the band of brothers in Southern California, the Nature Boys, was the original Nature Boy. His name was Robert Bootson, but his nickname that everybody knew him by, even in Hollywood, was Gypsy Boots.
Yeah.
Gypsy Boots was a friend of mine. He came to some of my events in his 80s or close to 90. And that's another long story. I'll try to make it brief. But it was an honor to have him at some raw stock festivals with Doug Graham and all the other Fruitarian educators. And Gypsy had his 90th birthday party at Paramount Studios in Southern California in Hollywood, and I was invited. It was a total thrill. I went with my friend Ro Gallo, who wrote the book Perfect Body and helped launch the Fruitarian movement in the 1990s. And Gypsy was just absolutely full of energy, and a couple of those people we talked about, the Nature Boys, were there, and they were in their 70s or 80s, and they looked like they were 50 years old. They had long flowing hair. They were wearing white gauze clothing, and it was like looking at gods.
Wow.
And they were the original California hippies. And they didn't do drugs. They were Nature Boys. They actually slept in caves around Hollywood and foraged for fruit. So Gypsy Boots passed away in his early 90s, and his history in Hollywood, he was friends with some Hollywood stars like Michael and Kirk Douglas and so forth. He was at the Emmy or the Oscar Awards on camera. Anyway, fascinating subject, Gypsy Boots. Moving along to, let's see, the early 1900s, one of the most famous fruit eaters, he wasn't a total raw fooder or fruitarian, but was Thomas Edison. Believe it or not, he was obviously a brilliant scientist, inventor, holder of over 1,000 patents. His laboratories were about 10 miles from where I grew up in northern New Jersey, and my family went there when I was a young teen, and the tour guide, who was in his 90s, actually worked with Edison and told us a little story I never forgot. He told us that Edison would invite his family and his closest business associates at his laboratory for dinner, and he would feast on apple pie. And he would laugh at everybody else who fell asleep and got drunk after having their big, heavy, meat and potatoes meals.
Mm-hmm.
He would stay alert and energetic, living on his preferred diet of apple pie.
Oh, wow.
Okay, then in the 1920s, along came, to me, the most brilliant doctor of all time, Dr. Herbert Shelton. Famous quote by Dr. Shelton is, "Man's home is in the orchard." He pioneered modern health science, which is totally ignored by modern medical science, which really isn't science. He came up with the term orthotrophy for correct diet. He understood that man's diet should be based in fruit. He wrote 40 books. He fasted over 50,000 people to health. And from his base in Texas, he became a living legend. He influenced Dr. Lawrence Gallant, who's the doctor of natural hygiene, who helped me save my life 36 years ago. And he also greatly influenced another great fruitarian who came after, sort of overlapped and carried on Shelton's work, Dr. T.C. Fry. T.C. Fry did like 100 events with Dr. Doug Graham, who I think the audience knows about. He influenced dozens of today's natural hygiene doctors and educators. Mm-hmm. And it all goes back to Herbert Shelton as far as promoting the rational fruitarian diet. He worked alongside with Dr. Virginia Vetrano, who also did a fruit-based diet. And she wrote the book let's see, what's the name of her book? Genuine Fruitarianism, yes. So Dr. Vetrano actually passed away last summer. She was 92 years old. And word is she was in really good health when she passed away peacefully.
Excellent.
A living legend in her own right. She worked alongside Dr. Herbert Shelton for, I think, around 40 years. Okay, another person on the hit parade is Dr. O.L.M. Abramowski. He was a medical doctor with a healing clinic or sanatorium in Australia. And he did an experiment. He put all of his patients on a fruit diet, and they all got well. He ended up writing a couple books. One is Fruitarian Diet and Physical Rejuvenation, and the other one is called Fruit Can Heal You. I sell them both. They're PDFs, ebooks. You can get them from my website, Vibrant Health. Let's see, I changed the URL recently. I'm trying to remember what I'm actually calling it now. VibrantHealthBookstore.com, I think, or VibrantHealthStore.com, sorry. Okay, so I found out about Dr. Abramowski and a bunch of other great fruitarian legends through the great legendary Morris Kroc. Mm-hmm. Morris Kroc lived in South Africa. His daughters and son lived in the San Francisco Bay Area, where I was living for 20 years. And we met at a raw food potluck in San Francisco. And we became great friends. And I found out he was publishing a lot of expired copyrighted books, including Abramowski's and others about the fruitarian diet. And Morris himself wrote legendary books about the fruitarian diet. His most famous book was Fruit, the Food and Medicine for Man. Uh-huh. Morris Kroc passed away in the early 70s, but he was a very sickly young man, and he discovered the fruitarian diet in his 20s, and it gave him another 50 years. Mm-hmm. And he really pioneered fruitarianism and athleticism. He ran about 15 ultra marathons mm-hmm. in South Africa. And he never set any records, but he ran, he felt runner's high, euphoria throughout most of the race. His race times were maybe 6 or 7 or 8 hours, but he recovered very quickly. And he went on to write these prolific books on fruitarianism and fitness. And it was an honor to know Morris and hang out with his family. It's hard to find his books. I tried to continue publishing them after Morris passed away, but his family didn't seem that interested in that, and I'm not sure if they're still printing his books. If you can find copies of Morris Krock's books through Amazon, then totally go for it.
Okay.
Okay, let's see who else. So I mentioned Dr. Doug Graham. In the 1990s, before the internet exploded, Doug Graham was doing something incredibly profound. He's a chiropractor, and he was traveling with and coaching the tennis champion Martina Navratilova. Martina was winning tennis championships doing the fruitarian diet. She was living on mostly bananas, lettuce, celery, other fruits. And people didn't know this. I never heard of this, and people would think that would be impossible because she's as muscular and strong as a bull. So then along came the internet around 1996, and thus natural hygienists, raw foodists started to meet each other, and then the whole movement started to grow. There was only one raw food group in the whole country, as far as I know, San Francisco Living Food Support Group, founded by Jesse Stewart and Dorleen Tong. And I went to the meetings a couple times a year. I became the newsletter editor. My newsletter grew into Live in Nutrition magazine, as you already mentioned before. At one of the meetings, Rogallo spoke. At another one, Morris Krock spoke. About 70 or 80 people showed up. The atmosphere was electric. And thanks to everybody finally being connected through the internet, through email, the movement really started to grow in 1996, 97, 98. And for us raw fooders, natural hygiene folks, the cat was out of the bag. The magic had just begun. It just started to explode. It was really exciting. There were a few raw food events, raw food festivals or expos, I should say, in the San Francisco area. At one of them, I met Dr. Doug Graham. Our tables were next to each other's, and we became instant brothers. Doug and I are still in touch almost every day by email. And he, with TC Fry, myself, a few others, were promoting the fruitarian diet like nobody else in the United States. Then along came Nature's First Law, a few fellows in Southern California, and they were really savvy and dynamic on the internet, and they promoted their book, The Raw Food Diet. And let's see. Okay, so also in the 1990s, the most important things going on, perhaps, was the three great fruitarian magazines. I was doing Live in Nutrition. Susie Miller in England was doing the Fresh Network News, Fruitarian Raw Energy Support and Health News. Susie did an amazing job with that magazine. It helped bring people all over Europe and the world really together. She visited me twice in the United States. It was great to meet her and her son and daughter. And so the third part of the magazine scene was Rene Beresford in Australia. He published Fruitarian Network News, and it was handwritten. It was very folksy. It was full of tons of information about everything to do with health and lifestyle. So we had these three big raw food magazines, fruitarian magazines, going at the same time for about 10 years, and it was really amazing. Did you get any of those magazines besides Live in Nutrition, Ronnie?
I've not seen any of those apart from the Fresh Network, the ones from the UK. So I have seen some of those. They're obviously before my time, but I had a friend that was involved in that a little bit. She had some copies, and she gave them to me. Okay.
And I want to mention there was another magazine, a bit smaller, out of Sweden called Just a Banana by Kasodi Osterling. I had a few copies of that, and it was really great to network with Kasodi. I think he's still around networking with people. Through this movement, I met Ann Osborne by email and by correspondence. and many other people. I think a lot of people know Anne. I think she's been in England and Australia a lot. She's been at your festival, I'm sure, many times.
That's right, yeah.
Another name to go backwards a little bit is I learned about a man who's very mysterious and legendary. He lived in Ecuador. His name was Johnny Love Wisdom. And he was a fruitarian, and he talked about his science of health called Vitarianism. Another key player came along in the 2000s named Arnold Kaufman. He's got the world's only, or he had, maybe it still is, the world's only 100% raw food cafe store in Lansdale, Pennsylvania, somewhere near Pennsylvania. I mean near Philadelphia. David Norman, a friend of mine and Doug Graham, he started a restaurant called Bonobos, a raw food restaurant right in the middle of New York City. It's not around anymore, but I gave a talk there, and he was another great pioneer in this movement. Let's see, David Ray-Jean Durrett in Arizona published a book called Fruit, the Ultimate Diet. He's still around. Let's see, who else? Charlie Abel wrote the Raw Food Bodybuilding Training Manual. I was selling that for many years. He's on the big island of Hawaii now. He's updating the book. It's not available right now, so we'll look forward to seeing what his updated version is. He's has an amazing physique doing raw food diet, mostly fruit. Then there's my great friend Don Weaver of over 30 years. He's in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's been 100% organic raw food fruitarian, including vegetables, nuts, and seeds, for about 40 years. Together, we co-wrote last year the book Fruiticulture. Don is an amazing inspiration to many people. He's into remineralizing the earth. He writes for that website, remineralizetheearth.com. He's into planting fruit trees all over the Bay Area and in lecturing about that. He's lectured at the raw stock festivals I put on. And he wrote the book, or co-wrote the book, The Survival of Civilization also. And To Love and Regenerate the Earth, I think is the name of his other book. He's a great friend, and he might make a great subject for you to interview someday too.
Great.
Let's see. So in the early 2000s, in Northern California, in Sebastopol, I put on 2 summer raw passion jamborees, which are big raw food festivals at my friend's fruit orchard. And then at the last one, I was sitting down listening to a speaker with Dr. Doug Graham. And Doug whispered a word in my ear, which really got me going. He whispered, raw stock. And I looked at him and I said, no, there's no way we can do this. I envisioned a big, huge festival, which was way beyond what I could handle. But I couldn't get the thought out of my head, Ronnie. And 10 minutes later, I said to Doug, we're going to do raw stock. The next 2 years, we did the biggest raw food festivals in the United States in Northern California. They were held. And we had about 250 people at each. And they were fantastic. We had farm fresh fruit. We were under the apple trees. One of them was on a amazing health retreat overlooking the Pacific Ocean, a place called Ocean Song. And they were just the best. And they set the stage for Michael Arnstein to do his Woodstock Fruit Festivals.
Sure. And
paved the way for everything else, including the UK Fruit Festival, the Fresh Food Festival in Denmark by Peter Check and others. And let's see, I mentioned yours. And now my friend here on Maui is planning to do a Maui Fruit Festival.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so this is going a lot quicker than the last time, isn't it, Ronnie?
Yeah, I mean, I think the last time, just for the listeners, me and Dave did try and record this actually probably over a year ago, and it lasted over an hour. You hadn't even got halfway through it, so you've edited it down a little bit to some of the key kind of facts and the key kind of players there. But let me go through some of the things that I've noted from what you're saying. So basically, we're going back to some of the earliest information that we can really find about people talking about promoting the raw diet. Obviously, you've got the historical figures like Leonardo da Vinci. Some people would say Pythagoras as well, and others. But really going back to some of the Germans in the 1800s, and maybe also some of the American natural hygiene kind of the people that came before Herbert Shelton and so on, Russell Troll, different people like that at the time when the medical movement was not as had not really come together entirely and become under the umbrella of science.
Yes.
And there was a lot of strange things. I mean, obviously, you would suggest that there's a lot of strange things that still happen in the medical industry. But back then, there was a lot of stuff that was happening that was not didn't have any kind of science behind it, like where people were maybe having I think there was practices like where people were having their drills put into their heads and stuff like that to try and release pressure, and different things that were tried out in those days, and different other sorts of strange things where people were put in the dark, or I don't know. I've heard of all sorts of different things that happened in the medical industry, and everything was kind of um, wasn't formalized yet, and there were many different schools that were teaching people to be doctors, and that hadn't already all been formalized. So the medical industry, the world of doctors and medicine, was very, if we go back over 150 years especially, was very unorganized, very different levels of standard, um, and at that point there were many more, or there was probably quite a lot, or quite a large amount, or quite a strong movement of natural hygiene type doctors, naturopathic doctors, and so on, that were doing well in that kind of era, and and then when the medical movement kind of came along stronger with the Flexner report and so on,
Yes.
and the pharmaceutical industry really developed its power, then that kind of overshadowed everything.
Yes.
And this movement's really been kept going by these people that have, like yourself, like Doug Graham, going back to T.C. Fry, Herbert Shelton, that really took it upon themselves to try and continue this message and continue this information, because the medical world was not accepting it, and people were, and I get the feeling, Dave, that if we go back 100 years, that this concept of eating raw foods wasn't as crazy an idea back then as people would think about it now, and that the marketing of food that's happened over the last 100 years, especially, where these ideas have been connected into people's minds of meat being for protein, milk for calcium, complete proteins in eggs, and all these different ideas that have been really planted in people's minds through advertising over the years, that this and the medical movement have really led to this situation where we have so many chronic diseases, and people, and most people aren't even aware of the benefits of changing diet and eating healthier foods, and people don't even really know what a healthy diet looks like. So I see it as basically a story of a number of heroes who have managed to keep the movement going and share the information. It is incredible if we think back to someone like Herbert Shelton, who was publishing a huge amount of information, as you're saying, far before the internet, and these groups and little communities that were able to pop up back then. Um, so I'm fascinated by the history of it all myself, and I think that we're now at a great time where we're able to start bringing the information together. we're able to start bringing more people together, and with social media especially, the diet, the fruitarian type of diet, is so appealing visually, and because it's the most beautiful diet. The idea of eating fruits and vegetables, these vibrant plates of fruit, colorful fruits, is so fantastic for the age where pictures are able to be shared easily, where videos are able to be shared. And yeah, I see the movement continuing to grow now. I don't particularly see any stopping or getting smaller. I think more and more people are being impacted by it and starting to eat more and more fruit. And certainly in the plant-based vegan movement, that is really exploding. And so I think the world is changing, but it is fantastic. It's fascinating to see how it's really come from these individuals that have had such an impact. So there's a few people you didn't speak about, Dave. You didn't mention Arnold Ehret much, who some
Yes,
people would say
I
was
have a
a
few more. I have several more on the list, which I
yeah.
haven't gotten to, and I actually did skip over Arnold Ehret. I meant to mention him. He wrote the books Rational Fasting and, of course, the Mucusless Diet. And he was promoter of the Fruitarian diet in the early 1900s. I've just got a few more, Ronnie. Should I finish up?
Yeah, of course.
In the chat. Yeah. Let's see. So I want to go back to the 1800s. The greatest doctor before Dr. Shelton was Dr. Isaac Jennings,
Right.
who pioneered natural hygiene. I don't know if he wrote any books on diet, but Dr. Isaac Jennings was a medical doctor. And he was a great pioneer for physiology, for natural hygiene. Dr. John Tilden also, he wrote the book Toxemia Explained, and he tried to reform the medical establishment in the 1920s, but they just totally ignored him. He taught that disease is caused by the condition toxemia, and the doctors want nothing to do with it. They just totally bought into the germ theory and drugging and all the other crazy stuff they do. Let's see. I wanted to also mention Brian Rossiter in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
He's been putting out the best raw food magazine the last several years online, the Fruit Powered Digest.
Absolutely, yeah.
Fantastic, beautifully produced graphic arts production. And because this field has become so big, and the vegan movement, the vegetarian movements have taken off, the niche that people like Brian and I had, and even you in promoting the raw food fruitarian diet, has exploded. It's become so big. There's so many new players coming on board every day that we have we've had to change our course with how we make a living, because there's so many people in the field now, and there's so much free information on the web that we have not been able to sustain our magazines. Brian had to cut back. I stopped publishing my magazine about 4 years ago because there's so much free information. People don't want to spend $5 on a magazine anymore. And really that's, what people like Doug Graham and I and you are in business for, is to grow the movement and see it totally take off. And it has taken off like crazy. And now it's no longer, this quirky little thing where if you hear about it in the newspaper, all these dietitians and medical doctors warn about how dangerous it is. Now it's become mainstream.
Yeah.
And this is what we prayed for when the movement started to take off around the year 2000. And now it's mainstream. There's many celebrities like Woody Harrelson here on the island of Maui, who are well-known raw fooders. And the field is crowded. There are new people coming along every day. My wish is that everybody get properly educated. One little fact I want to throw in the early 2000s, Linda Chuckle-Fromm and her husband, Dr. John Chuckle, they put on the Portland, Oregon Raw and Living Food Festivals. They put on about 3 in a row, and all the great raw fooders showed up, had our tables there. I was there 2 or 3 years. And at that event, I met many great people. Mm-hmm. Let's see, I lost my train of thought. You're gonna have to edit this part out. Why did I bring that up?
The Portland Raw Food Festival.
Right, I'm trying to remember why I brought that up. Oh yeah, okay, now we can start it. So at that festival, Roz Graham, who I haven't mentioned yet, was there. Doug's wife, who's a fantastic educator. What came out of those festivals is Doug and Rosalind decided to try to form a committee to guide proper education of the raw food diet, how to teach the raw food diet, because there were so many improperly misinformed educators out there giving bad information. So Doug spearheaded trying to create consensus among all the raw fooders, and there were people who, you know, were at these events who didn't necessarily buy into the raw food, fruitarian approach, or the natural hygiene approach. He tried to galvanize the whole movement and set up a curriculum for properly educating people who wanted to teach this, and it never got off the ground because the energy was too scattered and people have their different opinions on how to teach the raw food diet. So my hat is off to Doug for trying to do that. And then 2 more things I want to mention is as far as teaching the raw food fruitarian approach, there are 2 major educational organizations which do that. One is the University of Natural Health. It's a distance learning university. It's a real university. My friend, Dr. Paul Fanny, around the year 2005, set it up. He jumped through all kinds of legal hoops to grant real degrees, masters or bachelor's, masters, PhDs, nature orthopathic doctor degree like I got, hygienic doctor degree like I got from his university. He's teaching true physiology. A lot of the textbooks are all of Dr. Herbert Shelton's greatest physiology textbooks. My book that I co-wrote with Dr. T.Z. Fry called Your Natural Diet, Alive Raw Foods, which I since have renamed The Vibrant Diet, plus Doug's book, The 80-10-10 Diet, are part of the curriculum. Dr. Paul Fanny has put in tens of thousands of hours to create this amazing curriculum to really fulfill Dr. Herbert Shelton's wish to have a real university, and T.C. Fry's too, to have a real university teaching true health based on accurate physiology. And Dr. Fanny's done an amazing job. He's graduated, I think, a few thousand people from all walks of life, even pharmacists, chiropractors, registered nurses have gone to the program and earned PhDs. It's the University of Natural Health. I created my own academy, which has 10 courses. It's called the Vibrant Health and Wealth Academy. I teach, I train and mentor even after people graduate, after the students graduate. I mentor for life people who teach, who want to be a Vibrant Health teacher counselors. Mm-hmm. I set that up about 5 years ago. I've enrolled about 65 students all over the world. It's going beautifully. 10 courses, and I train people who want to have a career counseling people in all matters of health. And the diet is based on the Fruitarian diet. And again, my website on the Fruitarian diet is Fruitarian Info. And I should emphasize that I believe the Fruitarian diet should not be 100% fruit. It should include plenty of greens, other vegetables, and small amounts of nuts, seeds, and avocado. But it should be based in fruit, but not exclusively fruit. So I did it, Ronnie. I covered all my points this time. And how much time do we have left? I'm glad to keep on discussing.
Well, that's fine. I mean, yeah, we've not quite reached an hour yet, and I guess what I'd like to maybe talk about a little bit is your opinion of kind of where this is going, what you think the future of it is. Um,
Uh-huh.
what's your thoughts on all that?
Well, it's a big, big scene. And as you know, veganism has exploded in the last 12 months. It's gone really crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gotten commercial and it's got corrupted like every other movement. But all in all, it's been fantastic. And in a sense, it's good because the raw food movement is never, at least in these times, is not going to be accepted as much as a vegan diet is, because a vegan diet can include cooked food. So it sort of complements what we're trying to do and actually helps tow us along. You know, the jump from mainstream standard American diet to the raw food diet was too much of a leap, it seemed, in the early 2000s. In the early 2000 years, but the vegan movement seems to have helped make our cause more prolific. So it'll give more people access to the raw food diet, and they will intermix. And there'll be a lot of confusion about what a healthy diet is. There's the crazy keto phase.
Sure.
Or keto fad. And there's all kinds of takes on the keto paleo diet. And but all in all, the vegan movement's been a really nice surprise. And one more thing I can add is that I've learned in the last couple of weeks that access to health information on the web is being censored more heavily than we know. Google has 88% of all the searches. They're acting as a monopoly, and they're censoring alternative health websites, including my Class and Crohn's Center website, which has been prominent for 25 years. Now all of a sudden it's invisible to organic searches. I've written to Congress people. Yesterday I sent them all letters I worked on for an entire week. Mm-hmm. I found out similarly that other big alternative health, anti-big pharma health websites have been blacklisted by Google. So hopefully the raw and vegan and fruitarian diet websites and the practitioners who teach this properly will not be impacted by Google censorship. But it's hurting. It's hurting a lot of people's income. It's hurting mine because it seems that big pharma has targeted my business because I get people well without drugs. And hopefully it won't go so far that that they're going to censor the fruitarian approach to health.
Sure, and I see what you're saying. Well, Dave, how would people get in touch with you if they want to find out more about you? I can see the Colitis and Crohn's Centre for those who are looking for that information. Anywhere else they can contact you?
They can find me through fruitarian.info, through classandcrohncenter.com. They can get me at dave@digestionperfection.com. The magazine site is still up, vibranceMagazine.com.
All these different places.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So
excellent.
The internet grew. I came up with about 12 different websites, and now in retrospect, it would have been better to focus on one or two, but I've learned a lot about how the web works, and it definitely is good to have one home base website. Mm-hmm. And if your goal is to have a web-based business and Yeah, if your goal is to be a health counselor with a web-based business, please contact me. We have to work towards seeing that Google is broken up. They're acting as a monopoly, and they're really suppressing health information, and this is really not good for humanity. So I just started taking steps to see what can be done. I found out that 50 attorneys generals throughout the United States are investigating Google, and hopefully it'll be broken up, and natural health websites will not be blacklisted by Google.
Interesting. Well, thanks very much, Dave, for your time today and all the information. It's been a really fascinating journey through the history of the Fruitarian movement. I think a lot of people will benefit from that. And if you are interested in getting in touch with Dave, you can go to the Colitis and Crohn's Centre if that's the information you want. Digestion perfection, and you can even just search for him online. I'm sure you'll find a lot of information about him. Thank you for your time today, Dave. Any last message before we go?
No, thank you very much for the opportunity, Ronnie. I'm glad you're leading the movement with several other great people, and best wishes with your festival.
Thank you very much, Dave. And if anyone is interested in the UK Fruitfest, you can go to fruitfest.co.uk/registration to find more information about the event, to join up for our announcement list. We're well on our way to filling the festival for 2020. It takes place from 26th of July to the 2nd of August over 8 days. 8 days of education, activities, fitness, and 100% raw vegan diet. And we'd love to see you there. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. Watching or listening if you're listening. And feel free to share this with other people you think it might be of interest to. Give us your feedback, give us a comment, or rate it, wherever you're listening to it. Thank you very much for listening to the Love Fruit podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode.